Um, I actually haven't streamed in so long that I'm a little bit uncertain if everything is okay. Let me just quickly check this out. Okay, so let me see. I'm taking a look in case there are any comments. I hope I didn't set a nasty timer, a nasty time delay. Let me just make a quick check of that. All right, so people are saying that that it's all okay. Yeah, and there's no stream. There's no stream delay. So there's only a delay on my end. The tournament has started 2 minutes ago, so let's jump right into it. Excuse me, I'm I'm rusty. So here we are. And it's a very strong field. It's got a lot of Grandmasters as always. However, for now, I'm not seeing in the top page any of the really seasoned veterans of winning this event. People like Magnus Carlsen, Andrew Tang, some of the fastest and best players in the world. I'm not seeing them. However, I am seeing Nihal Sarin, upcoming Indian prodigy, already 2600 plus. He is actually streaming the event. Sergey Chigalko is another 3000 plus rated player online in Bullet and Blitz. So these guys are already two of the streamers, already two of the big favorites for this event. Let's kick things off with this game here, where with the black pieces, it's the Grandmaster from Armenia, whose name I always forget. I believe it's Haik Martirosyan. I'm reading here in the chat, and he's facing off against an international master with the black pieces. We've got level material here. Black is threatening checkmate, so white finds a way to get rid of the queens. In the end, it's a mass simplification. Black is up a pawn, but will it be enough? Here, the key difference, though, in the position, more so than the pawn, is the actual time advantage. So we've got 12 seconds on the clock. That's probably going to be too much, especially in the hands of such a bullet titan as Arm 777. Sorry, by the way, guys, for the somewhat shaky start to the stream. I haven't been feeling too well for a day or two before this. Been underslept for the last few days for some reasons of missed flights and all sorts of other things. But hopefully things will be okay from now on. So thank you guys for the patience. Rook h1 is a huge threat, and well, in the end, Sami Sahi is down a full rook. So it looks like this one is going to be over. I don't see any tricks here, and sure enough, checkmate. All right, so I now have all the chat rooms open, and yeah, let's take a look at the next game. So here I'm just, this is Arm actually once again. So maybe we should pick a different game. Well, we'll stick with Arm, as this was the top board for this first game here. We're seeing him playing against this regular of Lichess, and it's Toivok 3. And queen g4 makes a bit of sense there. Initially, I was wondering why white was playing like this, but okay, white is just in huge trouble. He's down a million pieces. Now g4, but this rook falls, and yeah, Arm has lost the game. Let's return to the tournament and let's see what top games there are right now. We're going to move on to Sergei Chigalko against Sumsar 42. And we've got equal pieces here. White has a little bit of a space advantage in the center, but that's not very significant. What is significant is the white king is very, very shaky here on h1. You might see queen e4 check if you're not careful. For now, black is picking up a pawn. On the other hand, we might see some ideas here. Queen takes g7. Now, if you move this bishop, queen c7 check would end the game. But we see black is more interested in creating their own threats than anything else. Knight f1 is a nice move, defending everything, defending the bishop, defending the pawn on h2. Everything is safe now. And white is actually consolidating. Now the character of the game has changed massively because neither king is really in danger anymore. But in the end, white is up a couple of pawns here. I like white's play. The problem, though, the clock. Will Chigalko survive with 5 seconds on the clock? I don't think so. I think Sumsar is going to win this. He's picked up a pawn as well. As long as Sumsar doesn't fall into some kind of perpetual, which this knight here, I think is going to prevent it. King b6, for example. No, he's gone this route, but anyway, Chigalko will run out of time, and there we go. We see a nice win for black there in a very tricky double-edged position. Hello to Monstau and Rasmus Vane. It was Sumsar. Yes, in fact, actually, if it's Sumsar is Rasmus backwards. So there we have it. Yeah, Rasmus Vane, one of the strong grandmasters from young grandmasters from Germany. Let's take a look again. We're going to pick this board here. GM I Am Straw. Maybe someone in the chat can tell me who GM I Am Straw is. We see we're kicking things off with a very theoretical Grunfeld here. Where black, I mean, you might have missed it. It was blistering speed. But basically, black picked up a pawn here. In exchange, white picked up this pawn. And now, actually, black's idea with knight b6 is just to keep this rook trapped. He's pivoted. The rook is safe. And in fact, he's offering a pawn. But white doesn't take it because the thing is, if you're white here, this is the concern. You cannot castle your king. So white actually has found this setup to try and castle, but in the meantime has missed this crucial check. And now when the king drops back, we're going to lose this rook. This is a nice sequence. Rook c8 is going to end the game because basically the queen was here, the bishop was here. White had to give up their queen for just a rook. It's not going to be enough. Rook d8 is a sneaky tactic with bishop here and bishop h6 being the intention, queen a5 covering that square. So it's a nice play, and to be honest, I mean, I'm Straw is just completely dead. He's playing again for that trick with rook d8. It's a nice resource, nice idea. Maybe we're going to see something like knight d6. No, we see some shelter for the king. Those tricks are gone, but the e6 square is left a little bit weakened, and white is very, very commendable play here from white, just trying to stir up any kind of activity. Rook b8, king f7, watch out, knight d8 check. So black has to play like this. It's really an incredible fight from white. But is it going to be enough? He goes knight f4. What kind of tricks can he play for here? Knight h5. There's pressure here. Picking up the a7 pawn is important. And I don't really like e4 because it gives this knight, brings this knight back. But of course, white is completely lost here. Down still the same material, rook for queen. But incredible fight, and 8 seconds down to 5 seconds. You never know. If I Am Straw is fast enough, he might do it. But black's making really nice progress. King will come to g3 or to e3 with checkmate to follow. King e3 was missed. And black... I held my breath there. Black actually whipped out so many moves with the queen there. It was just like his clock was completely stuck at point 3. And that's the advantage when you have the queen. You know, the white king cannot shuffle to all the squares. The queen is going to sort of catch up, make a big time difference, catch up. I don't know how to phrase it, but you know what I mean? Like if you have 10 seconds with only a king, and the person with the queen has maybe 2 seconds, very often the 2-second person with the queen will win just because of this nastiness where the king often you can't pre-move with the king because that square is going to be covered with the queen. And here, that's what black did. Really impressive with 0.3 seconds. Okay, let's take a look at the next game. We've got Toivok here. Let me see. Do I find anything very interesting here? Vladimirovich. As far as I know, Vladimirovich is it Fedosiev or Andreikin? This is one of these players, I feel. Maybe somebody can let me know in the chat. I'll be mainly following the Twitch chat. So if that is, since that is generally the one that's more active, so we'll be following that when I do, and for the most part, just commenting on the big games as we are still in the warm-up stage of this event. It's a 2-hour long bullet event, happens every month, and we're 13 minutes into it. This game finished very, very quickly. For now, our leader is Martirosyan, the young Armenian Grandmaster. He's about 2,650 in strength. Toivok 3, an international master, I think from Finland. He is in second place. Another international master, Green Knight, in third. And Rasmus Fane and Georg Meyer, two strong German Grandmasters, in fourth and fifth, respectively. Let's take a look, actually. Pragnananda, he has had a little bit of a shaky start for his standards. But he's in sixth place. Let me see, can we find this game? Oh no, we cannot find this game, but we do find the game of, with the black pieces, Rebecca Harris. This is Daniel Naroditsky, several-time winner of these titled arena events. Especially, I would say, especially beastly in bullet. Let's see what he's up to in this game. He's got a double attack here against the queen as well as this pawn. White shuffling the queen back to d1 makes a lot of sense to try and pick up this pawn with the queen so that maybe the queen can go to g3, offering a trade of the queens. That would be helpful for white because the king is very, very shaky. Black denies that option, or declines that option rather. And now rook d1, one idea from white is to bring that bishop back to c1, but that bishop is now out of the way. We do get this endgame in the end, but black is up a lot of material in this endgame. Bishop to f5, the bishop is really, really safe here. And yeah, overall, I mean, this position looks great for Naroditsky. However, there is one minor detail that I just noticed. Black is actually down a piece, and that's a pretty significant one, but to be honest with you, I would still take black here. The clock situation, g3 now is going to recover the piece, and it's going to be game over. Rook e1, rook c5, the only way to save the game, to keep a rook each. However, although this is a theoretical draw, 14 seconds against 3, I'm not so sure that white is going to survive. This pawn was falling, but there we go. Naroditsky focusing on the flag. Okay, let's see the next game. Who shall we take a look at? Let's take a look at two 3,000 plus players here. Matti Pro, Inventing Invention. By the way, if anyone from the chat would really like to follow a particular player, just let me know. And I'm happy if the chat in general is happy with that player, following them for a bit, I'm happy to do so as well. Here, again, the games we've seen so far have been kind of more technical grinds. It's been a little bit of a slow burner at the start, but this is looking very nice for white, actually. He goes rook a6, covers the pawn, and somehow black just completely collapsed there in that game. Let's follow Vladimirovich here. We might actually start following a specific player rather than jumping around from one position to another, because we're seeing positions, kind of too late into the game, in my view. So we'll go ahead and do that soon. Here, white is up a lot of pawns. Importantly, these queenside pawns. I mean, actually, it's only one pawn, and black is going to be grabbing this one. I don't know about this way of playing, because black now has this passed pawn. White should be a favorite because the king can assist white's pawns, whereas the black king is really struggling to assist this guy over here. So we're going to see rook h5, and then rook g5. Very nice trick, actually, but maybe a7. a7. The point is there's no rook a5 check, rook here, queen check. Queen blocks, but it's gotten very, very messy here, and black might even be able to take this pawn at the right moment, but white with a huge scalp picking up this pawn on g3. Now the pawns are no longer dangerous. If black takes this one falls. Queen g1 check, was threatening to pick up the rook, but black has actually some kind of fortress here. King to g7, but really it's all about the clock here, and oof. It's looking like black is gonna do it. So black actually, well, the game was just completely crazy from start to finish there. Well, we didn't catch the start, but from the middle game to the finish, and black actually had the worst of it on the board for most of it, but in the end the clock was the biggest factor. But really nice defense from black in general. Let's follow a player. Let's follow, for example, let's follow Dania actually to see how he might actually break into the top 10. I have no doubt that he will. So, hello to Hasakarot, and thank you. So some people suggested Opervazen. Okay, let's make Oper the second player after Dania that we watch. We will watch Oper very soon. But let's catch a couple of games here from Dania Naroditsky, aka Rebecca Harris. And first game against Toivok. It's very complex. Black has black and white both have the same pieces. White is also having the same pawns, but the key difference is the white pieces. They're all in very, very active squares here, and we might even see some knight g5 and the bishop, both bishops, the rook and the knight. They're all working against the black king, and we see a nice sacrificial combo there. Really, really nice. Well, rook takes knight, rook takes, and then bishop takes was played in an instant, and basically it led to the win of a piece and resignation. So yeah, rough start, and now we're seeing a very brave berserk here from Dania. Could it be a little bit of tilt? Well, he's got unlucky there, because I think at the very start he may have pre-move blundered a piece. However, now we are seeing an even fight in the middle game, and we notice once again white declining to exchange the queens. We saw that in a previous game. Dania in a very fighting mood, confident in his tactical ability, and here I think Naroditsky's position is a little bit better, because you've got a bit more space in the center. You've got this bishop and knight against two knights. Usually the bishop is a little bit more powerful in these positions, and we see nice centralization from Dania. All of the pieces here, rook d2 looking for an exchange, but it has to be said, the biggest element is the clock here. Will that berserk cost him? So we're seeing some very nice advancing, nice grabbing of center, but at the same time nice defense from black. Seeing white is trying to reroute here. Black is just staying solid, and he's just wearing down the clock. But we see an interesting strategy from Naroditsky. I think he's also mainly just focused on actually catching up on the clock rather than on the position. So neither player is really playing the position, more so the clock. And knight c8 picks up this pawn. And look at Naroditsky's speed. We actually have white with a time advantage, having berserked. So I think, you know, that spells disaster already for Artem Sadovsky. If he couldn't hang on to the lead, he's not going to win this time scramble. And there we see the flag. It was, man, it was tough. Why is the clock size? The clock size, someone says, the clock size is making their head hurt. So let's try and fix that. Are we no longer following Naroditsky? What happened there? I thought we were following him. Okay, let's take a look at Opervazen. Where is Opervazen? Let me just check. Is Opervazen actually currently playing? I don't even, let me see. I don't know why. I thought I was following Opervazen, but I guess I was not. All right, here we go. Okay, so let me try and adjust this. Hopefully will be a bit better. Sorry guys, bear with me for the amateurish production. I used to stream quite a lot. I haven't streamed in a long time, and I guess streaming is like riding a bike, but if you haven't been on a bike in a few months, you might be a bit shaky at the very start. So okay, we're watching Operwezen here. He's also berserking, and he's berserking at 28-30. Just another day at the office for Operwezen, one of the strongest and most talented international masters on not just on the site but online. Very, very, very tough bullet and blitz player. But can he do it here against another international master with a currently 17-second advantage on the clock? Pawn on b4 has fallen though. White has a lovely position. Pawn to c4. Now we're looking knight back to c3, maybe trying to slide the knight to d5. That's what happens here, and White's position is just beautiful here. Oof, but nasty pre-move, nasty mouse slip, and actually Black could have punished that with knight takes queen. He didn't do this, but still Black is up a lot of material, and White is just desperately going to try to create some kind of mating attack here, or maybe knight g4, knight h6. That's the big threat. But these are very standard threats, so I don't think Black is going to fall for them. Rook d5 is a nice idea, but f5 is really a nice touch as well from Black. White resigns. It's 7 seconds against 16. Too many pieces. Once this knight moves, you're going to get crushed. And f5 is such a nice move because it kills everything. Kills the knight, kills the rook, kills any sort of potential there with the queen and the knight combining, because now the Black king has more squares. But Operwezen, he's back undeterred. We're looking at another berserk here. And bishop d7 is usually considered inaccurate, but in the case of Operwezen, you can be sure that he has some tricky ideas. I've played him hundreds of times. One of the things that distinguishes Oper, in my opinion, from other title players is or from, like, let's say the average international master or average grandmaster even, is his degree of creativity. He has a lot of creative and sneaky ideas in the openings, and very often independent ideas. So anyway, let's talk about this game here. What do we have in this particular game out of the opening? Castorcito, very strong, experienced grandmaster. He's really tough in the opening, Castorcito. He knows his openings very well. He's played the same repertoire for decades, and very hard to catch him out with anything. So here, yeah, Oper has not really achieved much out of the opening. The question is the clock. I think Oper has a chance. 8 seconds against 18. Castorcito, he is a lot slower than Operwezen. Most people are, but I would say the difference between Castorcito and Operwezen in speed is quite significant here. E5, maybe some B5 craziness. I think this king and pawn endgame, it's over. It's over. The 2 pawns. Operwezen actually wins. The point was Black had a pass pawn on d4, a pass pawn on h4, and the white king couldn't cover both of them. So incredible there from Operwezen. It happened really fast. Hard to process. Okay, so here we've got another game. So successful berserk. Pawn on c2 is being hit here by the bishop. What will White do? Defends. Rook d1 activating the final piece, h3 covering the g4 square. Bishop g3 has to be dropped back. King on f1, and after h4 again dropping back. f2 was a target there with the knight and the bishop. White plays f3, brings the knight into the center of the board, and c5 just trying to cut out this bishop. a3 b4 is a threat to win the piece because of that square, so Black reacts. Rook c8 has the bishop retreat square. Okay, knight f4, hitting the bishop, bishop e4, centralizing and keeping that bishop. The knight was very strong, so that gets removed. And White, again, Operwezen again has the better position here. The bishop is a little bit stronger than its counterpart. The structure is a little bit better. And that 3 on 3 is favorable for White. White picks up a pawn. On the other hand, Ronan Harsvey, he has too much of an advantage on the clock. The pawn on c7 is about to fall, and with it, the game. I don't think that Operwezen can hold this with 1 second on the clock, even though it is a draw. On the other hand, we have, very close there. It was very close to draw, but it was too much of a gap, and Ronan Harsvey showing that he has quite a lot of speed. Now it's Oper again with the black pieces against Greek Grandmaster Arnelos. What is Arnelos' name? Bashir Ahmed says we should follow Danya or Nihal, please. Yeah, let's follow after this game. We can follow we follow Danya for a couple of games. We can follow Nihal for a couple of games and take it from there. Who is Toivok? Toivok, I don't actually know his name offhand. I'm not even sure if I've ever known it, but I certainly don't know it. Don't know it now. I mean, I think it's public knowledge, but I don't know. You can check their profile, or sometimes people don't have it in their profile, but like if you ask the chat, like 20 people will tell you who they are. But I don't really know, but I have a feeling, yeah, Toivo Keinanen. I have a feeling this is some kind of Finnish international master. There you go. So it's in his profile, Toivo Keinanen. All right, so this game here, Oper with the black pieces did not berserk against Arnelos. Nevertheless, he's in a little bit of trouble because white has an extra piece here and extra time as well on the clock. Can black save this? Well, it's hard to see how you can save this, to be honest. White is going for b5, a4, a5. At some point, capturing maybe even some bishop a5 ideas. They may seem a little bit strange, but the point is that if... Oh, okay. Well, the game has changed completely differently. Has gone in a completely different direction. Sometimes if you go bishop here, if you take, and then in the end, this pawn marches on through. Okay, so let's take a look at somebody else. Let us see. We've got... Where is Nihal? Nihal is here. So let's go ahead and follow Nihal. Many tout him as, even a future world champion. Some people have suggested. I think it's too early to speak in those terms, but certainly one of India's brightest prospects. I've seen some of his games. Super impressive stuff. Super talented. Super hardworking. No doubt, in the not too distant future, will be 2700 plus Grandmaster. But for now, he's playing this endgame and he looks to be about to checkmate. There we go. Let's follow the next game from the start. Hello to Knight 1711. Okay, so it's Nihal against Rasmus. Rasmus with the white pieces opens up with Knight f3. Rasmus Vane from Germany. Nihal goes for a fianchetto setup. And we see a quick exchange of knights and queen c8. Seems a little bit of a funky way of playing the opening, but the idea is a fast bishop h3, challenging this bishop and maybe some kingside attack with h5, h4. Black drops the bishop back. There we see this h5, h4 idea is about to come in. f3, the idea behind that is if h4, g4, trying to keep the structure locked down. And so black shifts direction a little bit. We might see even some kind of castling because black has to figure out what do you do with your king. e5 is coming, blasting open the center. That's what we see here. Queen d7 perhaps is going to happen, or something along these lines, just to try to get ready to protect this pawn on e7 along the open file. And white can try to bump up the pressure further with some move like knight to e4. And we see white's position is really nice. Knight c5 ideas. Knight takes f6 is the main threat in the position, because if pawn takes, then rook takes rook on e8. So black has to watch out for this rook here. King g8 in order to guard it. But there's pressure against this semi-open file. White is outplaying black here for now. Very slow stuff. c5 is the pawn break that white's looking for. That extra space in the center. Black is combating this, but cedes the f6 square. And in the end, the dust kind of settles, but it settles at the expense of a pawn for black. But usually that's something that you do if you're in a bad position. You just sort of give up some small amount of material, hopefully sometimes a lot of material, just to try and get some activity, and black has done that. The rook is more active here. Rook c2 is a kind of a cheeky threat of checkmate, but no chances there. Rook takes f4 ideas might be in the air at some point with rook takes f4 g5, but be careful because that's not going to happen anytime soon, because it would come with a check. However, how does white make progress here? And Nihal has sort of paralyzed, so white actually gives up this pawn, and the reason for it is because he's got double the time on the clock, and white wants to play for the win here. And will he get the win? With 8 seconds against 1, you have to fancy white as a favorite. Although here, objectively speaking, black is the one in control. Has queened here. White just needs to keep the rook though and grind Nihal down with 0 seconds. Incredible. Nihal does lose. Sorry, black timed out. White is therefore victorious. Exactly right. So Nihal got the queen, but lost the game. Incredible defense from Nihal. And actually, it's really interesting. Rasmus very ambitiously going for the win on the clock, even when the position itself had gotten out of hand. So we can see that Rasmus is here, and he wants to fight for every point, even against some of the very best in this event. So Nihal now needs to recover. B3 is looks like a blunder, and it might be a blunder because after bishop takes rook here, you've got bishop to b4 striking at this knight. So maybe that's what was missed initially. 94 queen d3. I don't know about queen c8. Well, you have to get it out of the way before rook c1 pins you. F3. F3 seems like a blunder here because this bishop and this pawn, I can just I can maybe move the knight first. E5 trying to really, actually this is a great defense to avoid, no, but f takes e4 will actually still win the piece. Black can win this one, but the problem is this one hangs. So Nihal has picked up a piece. It's very shaky here in the center of the board, and the knight on g4 is kind of a little bit silly to say the least, but nevertheless a piece is a piece. And we can expect Nihal to be a big favorite to convert this position. Rook takes a7 is a big move. Knight h6 ideas, maybe queen g3 here. I like this idea of combining the queen with the rook. He steps first the king out of the way. And maybe we're going to see a move like queen to c3 or queen to g5, countering, hitting at this point. And now we might also see some knight h6 ideas with knight f7. Certainly, I'm sure that Nihal is considering these options. He figures they don't work. Queen e3. Now, what happens if I take you here? I was thinking I could give up the queen, but there might have been some back rank mating ideas. I don't think it worked though, for reasons we will not see because of the sheer pace of these games. Rook f7, rook here, and now knight f6. You have to be very careful here. Rook e6 stopping that. King g1, knight e7, and knight f5 is more than likely going to happen, and the knight is blundered by Nihal in time trouble. So one thing we've seen, I don't know, could it be an internet connection issue? Could it be a mouse issue? Could it just be because normally Nihal is extremely fast, but one thing that we're watching here is Nihal is getting outpaced on the clock, and well, you can't afford to do that when you're playing in one of the very strongest online bullet events going. Bashir Ahmed says, Alex, are you an active player or do you just stream and coach? I am mainly just a coach, to be honest. Well, I'm mainly a coach, and I work within chess. Work within chess in a variety of different roles, basically. But I used to be kind of part-time streamer and full-time coach. But I might be taking a little bit of a break from coaching for now, so that's why it's not such a straightforward answer from me. But let's take a look at this game here. Nihal is playing against Chess Explained, who is quite a well-known international master for many videos he's published, educational videos he's published on YouTube, and many series that he's produced for Chessable. Rook c4, we're probably going to see some move like b5, just fighting for, or maybe rook takes c4 and rook c8, arguing that this pawn is actually less strong than it appears. Normally you wouldn't want to connect the pawns, but on the other hand, having that rook being able to target it, and that's exactly what we see, has some benefits. Now black is probably going to bring the king on over to support the b pawn, so that he can start to consider pushing the a pawn. But before he does that, he activates the rook, threatening to take the pawn on g3. White is pushing pawns, but I don't think black is going to be too worried about that. Black has this ace up their sleeve, this fast a pawn, or not fast rather, but past a pawn, and that's what he's going to try to make the most of. 16 seconds against 16 seconds. Let's see if Nihal can avoid struggling on the clock as in previous games. b5, trying to make progress. Very solid defense from white so far. This is the idea. White activates. Notice these top guys, they're always seeking out activity in these rook and pawn endgames. Very important to avoid just falling into passive defense just for the sake of saving a pawn or two. So here we see black still has their main trump, but white has done wonderfully. And again, Nihal is in trouble on the clock, 2 seconds against 3. And Chess Explained is a very, very competent player, but there's a almost 400-point gap. We should not be seeing it go down to the wire, both on the clock and on position. So for now, I don't feel like Nihal is on his A game here from what we've seen. Let's take a look at another player now. Who would people like to watch? People are suggesting to follow Toivok. Well, Toivok is the tournament leader, so if people would like to follow Toivok, we can certainly do that. But let me see. A bunch of people are saying Danya, and okay, let's go for Danya. Nihal is streaming. That could actually be what is having the effect. Sorry. So Danya. And we go to the Danya TV, and the Danya TV is off right now. By the way, sorry for if at the start, like, one of the reasons it took me I've been on like 5 hours sleep because of some, well, basically missing flight related stuff, having to drive, like a bunch of hours. Like, I did a 4-hour drive today in a car I've basically never driven before on the other side of the road to what I normally drive. So I'm kind of a bit drained from this. And I was actually late because I was desperately searching the entire house for coffee. And it was the one time that I couldn't find any coffee at all. So I'd already prepared like my milk, but in the end, like, I failed completely. And so, well, you guys probably, actually, why am I showing you? This is basically just, it's just milk. It's just milk, as you can see. I could have just said that it was just milk. But anyway, yeah, so I was hoping that this was going to be a pretty strong coffee, but I'm literally just drinking milk only. So if I feel a little bit tired, that's what's going on there. Very little sleep, very long drive, and an unfortunate lack of coffee in the household. All right, so knight to c5, knight takes. We're seeing a nice sequence there, by the way, from Danya. But although it seemed like he won a piece, e6, nice trick, bishop e5. Oof, that wins a lot of material, because once you pick up this rook, then we're going to see rook d8, and everything is going to be hit. All right, so what are we seeing here? We're seeing aggression from Danya, which is what we normally see. Danya, by the way, for those who are not aware, is a very, very prolific content creator and streamer. And I always advise everyone to to tune into his streams. I think they're absolutely top notch from an education perspective, and I also personally find him quite entertaining to boot. So knight c6 here, it's a nice point, because the rook and the queen was hit, and if black had taken the knight, the queen coming in with a check was just too devastating. Here it's going to be game over. If queen takes, queen c6 check, and then this bishop falls. So again, blistering tactics from Naroditsky is one of the things that makes him so strong in these bullet events. He just has incredible tactical acuity. He combines that with aggression, and the aggression on top of that with tremendous speed on the mouse. And this is a really, really tough combo to ward off, and allows him to rack up a lot of points very quickly. So here, anyway, we are seeing a little bit of an unusual setup from black. Knight shifts over to b6, then c5, and presumably we're going to see d5 very soon. Maybe knight e4 is interesting, because if knight takes, you can grab this rook, but it's always double-edged. White does pick up a pawn here, is threatening a couple of different points here. And bishop a3 is a nice move, hitting the bishop, but also targeting this pawn. Bishop d4, defending everything. Knight back to e4, now bishop g7, finally accepting defeat. This pawn is attacked too many times. White picks it up, and I like white's position. Maybe Danya was a little bit too aggressive here. in going for that exchange, because white, although an exchange down, has 2 pawns for it, and black is the one being pushed back here, bishop to c8 in order to defend the pawn. And yeah, the knights are so central, and white can even afford the luxury of just a calm improving move here on the king side. Knight d6, targeting the bishop and also targeting this pawn. Black is really struggling to get their pieces out into the game. Defending here against f7, that was the passive move. Rook f8, the passive move, bishop c8, knight e8. Black is just being pushed back all the time to just try to untangle, and in the meantime a second pawn has dropped, or is that a third pawn? Bishop d5, very strong play from $9 here, who's just punishing Naroditsky for grabbing that rook a little too hastily. And white really is in great shape, but Naroditsky's fighting. He's picked up these pawns, and a rook and a knight are not going to be enough to checkmate. White will have to push the pawns. Another pawn picked up, and now it's no longer the case that white has an advantage. It has disappeared, and I don't like this exchange, because normally knight and 3 pawns, you're the one in control, but this pawn is so far advanced, and knights are famously terrible at stopping a pawn that is a rook's pawn. And on the other hand, these pawns, they're slow. Knight e6 check, for example, was an option there. Black didn't go for it. In the end, we can see that pawn worth way more than any of these, and Naroditsky will convert this one in his sleep. Very tricky stuff from Naroditsky, very resilient, and well, hard luck to $9, who actually just outplayed black from the start to almost to the very end, but in the end, very nice resourcefulness and also matching the speed. And that's a difficult thing to do, to match the speed of your opponent and actually end up with more time when you've been the one with a very difficult position for almost the entire game. It's much tougher to play a bad position than it is to play a good position at a quick pace. So that was quite impressive defense. So here we've got Naroditsky with the white pieces. He's playing a Mut-D Pro, International Master. I don't know exactly from where. Yeah, maybe someone will tell me. From Vietnam. Tuan Minh Le from Vietnam. And it is Man United Pro. Yes. Very tough player. By the way, nice trick. Queen d4. The point is, if you take this, there was queen d8 mate. That's why black moved the bishop and then grabbed the rook. But in the end, there's a very nasty threat here. King g2, queen g5. I'm surprised that he allowed this. But he needed to bring the king over in order to stop all the checks. Now queen here is going to be a little bit too much here, and Naroditsky should convert this one. Tuan Minh Le, queen g6, very nice. White just has to escape the checks. After king f1, I'm really surprised. Why no king f1? Now he goes for it. King here, aha, this was what he wanted to avoid. He wanted to avoid this exchange, but he's calculated that the knight gets back in time. The speed of calculation there is incredible. Now white king comes on over. Maybe we're going to see f5 at some point. Pawn takes, king moves, with then this pawn marching forward. I think we're going to see black is getting zugzwanged here. Has to move the king, then f5, and white marches the queen forward. There is no stalemate. Black still has a couple of squares, so Man United Pro resigns. Yeah, super strong I am. Myself and Fiona, aka Fionketta, we did a commentary of the Katara Bullet Masters that were played on Lichess and had some of the best in the world, including the world champion Magnus Carlsen, playing in it. And Man United Pro was one. Actually, Naroditsky also was a participant in it, and yeah, his play was exceptional, even when facing against some of the world's best bullet players. He's very consistent, very impressive chess. Okay, knight d5 here. I like Naroditsky's position here, going for bishop takes f3, crushing the white structure on the king side. Also having just too many pawns. You've got opposite colored bishops, but I don't think that's going to save white when you've got just a better structure and 3 extra pawns. The rook was being hit there. White is trying to create a blockade, but black will break that down. In the meantime, that rook was gone. Okay, battle of the heavyweights here. We've got Naroditsky against Chigalko. And white grabbing a bunch of space in the center. We see bishop d3, fast development. First e5, striking at the knight. Knight e4, striking at this pawn, picking it up. I'm not sure that black should have done this. Black is in trouble. c5, huge bind with this pawn on d6. It's already game over. I mean, after 12 moves, it's a rare sight to see Chigalko dead lost, but it's basically over. If you play f6, knight takes g6 is probably just going to break apart your king side. So black first makes sure that the bishop wasn't there supporting that pawn, and then eventually plays f6, kicking out the knight, playing b5, targeting this knight. White has a choice, goes for bishop takes so that the knight, which was covering that square, no longer is, and you can invade with knight b6. In the end, white is still up this crushing pawn. It's a crushing pawn because it's protected and it's a passed pawn and it's so advanced on d6. But black is fighting really, really well. b3. Looking to open up some lines, perhaps here the b file, if black had taken the a file. We're seeing bishop e3, maybe h3, just to stop any h3 annoying moves, targeting the king. Queen f2 was targeting the pawn, black defended. Queen e2 and queen g4, targeting the queen. Happy to exchange queens. At the same time, black, by playing queen a6, the queen is not at all able to defend the king side. And f5, the attack breaks through, bishop e3, a nice touch, defending. And the point is, once you defend, you're also, there was a discovered attack. So it was defending the check, attacking the bishop, and a discovery attack. Again, it just happened so quick, it's hard to process. Okay, so Naroditsky, here we're almost approaching the 1 hour mark, the halfway mark of the event. And we have got, we've got Naroditsky once again using his usual strategy, very aggressive stuff. He's built up a big pawn center here. Black might have some tricks though. Black might have some tricks. Instead, he goes for a different direction. This knight is on offer, and white actually declines it. White doesn't want, if you take, then my bishop is going to be hit, and I have no square for it. But white will probably take it now, because once this pawn is moved, the bishop has scope. Black goes b4, insisting on that piece sacrifice, but saying, you know, I'm going to get a pawn storm here on the queen side. Personally, I don't really believe it. I think that white is in control here, and white is actually just going to target this pawn. At the same time, combining it with a move like d5 is a nice idea, activating the queen, striking at this knight, and now maybe this pawn can already be picked up on this move. I'm not sure what's wrong with capturing it. There he goes. Rook to c2 and bishop. Rook b3, bishop to c2, rook takes, bishop takes queen, rook takes, bishop takes. It's a fair exchange, but you're down a piece if you're black, so that would favor white, and white is just in control here. Has picked up a pawn. Black lashes out with knight takes e5, but drops the rook, and it is game over. Man, that was an intense game. And actually, let's follow Naroditsky until he overtakes Toivak. Well, if he can overtake Toivak, I should say. I mean, I think he will do it because he's on fire here. And he's only 3 points away. But we'll give him 2 games to overtake. And if he doesn't, then we'll move and we'll switch players. Here again, very aggressive stuff. Black is down a million pawns on the queen side, but doesn't really mind because the idea is we're going to checkmate you here. And white, at the same time, white is going for just all of the pawns. And to be honest, in a over-the-board like classical game, you would say white is just winning, black is toast. In a bullet game, though, anything can happen here. It's very, very risky. It's very scary to play this position from the white side. And there we go, tactics. Rook takes e3. The rook was only defended by the bishop. And, well, now you've got 2 pieces, and now it's black that's in control. Queen d2. We see another pawn falling with the rook. Danya just spots these tactics so quickly. We might see queen f2. In any case, white is lost here, but the clock is the key. And black is ahead, 5 seconds against 4, and queen a1 ending the game. That was a beautiful game, actually. I mean, from this rook takes c3 move. Oh, huge game. Huge game. It's Naroditsky with the black pieces, but it is Pragnananda, one of the great Indian youngsters. one of the youngest, if not the youngest Grandmaster in the world. I don't think he's the youngest Grandmaster. Somebody can correct me on this trivia. But in any case, very, very bright prospect, 2,600 plus player already. And here we have got to be honest, a pretty technical game so far. It's less aggressive than the previous games that we've seen, but Danya is moving in with the queen and asking a question here of white. What do you do with this pawn? Do you go rook a3 to defend? That's a little bit awkward. So queen c2 chosen instead. Black moves the queen, and now bishop f8, targeting this strong bishop. White locks things down, which is a nice idea in my opinion, because now white has some ideas of playing against the black queen side with that space advantage, and actually tricked them, picked up an exchange, and now actually Pragnananda is just in control. What can black do in order to get back here? Knight g4, starting some aggression against the white king side. Maybe queen takes g3 is a nice idea, just hitting the knight. Oof, knight takes f2 doesn't work though. If you play king takes, bishop e3, what is the follow-up here? I think the idea was the king was here, and if you had taken with the queen, it was a cheapo. It would work against many players, but it did not on this occasion work against Pragnananda. Bishop takes c5 though. Black is actually down a full rook. Queen e6 might be played. No, knight e5 just to defend here. Black is down a full rook, but actually there are some chances, because at the end of the day, white's king is very, very unsafe, and knights are very, very tricky pieces here. Knight h5 is the big threat here. Danya spots it. King h7. Rook c7, bishop d6. I don't like this if you're white. Knight d3 surprises me. Queen takes h2, queen f4. Danya's actually just straight up going for the flag. He senses that the problem for Prag is not actually the position, but rather it is the clock situation. So he's just going to play that endgame. Initially down a full, he was down a lot, and now actually he's just winning it. He's winning it. He's got lots of time. Pragnananda struggling on the clock. Certainly not going to be able to compete against, or sorry, rather it was Nihal that's been struggling on the clock, but Pragnananda there unable to compete on the clock against Danya. So another win for Danya. And let's check out this game. I mean, it's too good to just move on to other players. It's against the other young Indian, Nihal Sarin, who we've noted has been really struggling on the clock in the game. So when we were watching him, so let's see, has he been able to improve that side of things, or will he be, well, he'll be in trouble if he hasn't against Naroditsky. Okay, so f5 here, striking at this knight. I don't really see too many options other than a retreat or this advance to g5, and the advance to g5 had some bishop f4 ideas. I think queen h4, bishop g5, bishop f4, the tactics are flying. The point is, you take my queen, but I take your queen, and maybe I'll take this knight, and after this, the structure is not so good. Knight comes into f4. Now white definitely is happy to go for this exchange because the knight was just too strong. Picking up this pawn, black picks up this pawn. It's really, they're both trading blows here, but black actually with the hammer blow here, this bishop on b5, picking up an exchange. I think Naroditsky missed it, and Naroditsky is in trouble. So Nihal playing a great game so far. Rook takes e5, going for the simplification. I like this, although it does give some practical chances for white to hold. Rook d3, very strong, because g5 is the threat of mate. And now, notice, I'm not taking the pawn. I'm focused on that threat of mate because there is no good way to actually stop it. So very, very nice play. You could go rook e3 and stop it that way, but the problem then is you're transitioning into a king and pawn endgame. And a king and pawn endgame, when you're down a pawn, is in this case, and in many cases, is devastating. If you still have a couple of rooks on the board, anything can happen. But most king and pawn endgames, and these players are so good that they immediately detect that's a lost king and pawn endgame. I'm not even going to bother. I'll just resign and play the next game. So yeah, some crazy stuff there. Okay, so black seems to have won a pawn, and we're still sticking with Danya. But I mean, to me, he's probably out of the players that I'm familiar with. He's one. His style is incredibly interesting to watch because it's very aggressive. It's sort of a high octane style when he plays bullet, and he's just being paired up against the best players, the other best players in the tournament. So it's been a very interesting watch for me. I hope you guys are also enjoying this particular watch. Okay, so bishop e5, knight takes rook d8. We've got 6 pawns against 5. White is down a pawn. White is down a pawn, but it's messy. After knight here, for example, king f2, do you have to go knight h2? Not really where you want the knight to be, especially when this bishop covers the squares. And now, indeed, that's what's happening. The bishop has to be targeted, and we're probably going to see an exchange sacrifice when white defends that bishop just in order to be able to play knight g4. And Danya, for several games in a row, I think, has actually lost an exchange, but usually has come out okay. But white will fight to get rid of that pair of rooks. And these players, they understand that a rook and knight versus two rooks does a lot better than just a knight against one rook. And here, Chigalko is having a party. He's eating every single piece and pawn belonging to Naroditsky. And yeah, I mean, nothing to be done there. One more heavyweight battle here on our hands. We've got white, Naroditsky. We've got Pragnananda with black opening up with an opening that grabs a lot of space in the center. But Prag holding his own, leveling the material in the center, lashing out here on the king side, with the idea being to shift that knight to f4. Very typical strategy. You have to be careful if knight e7 forks. By the way, the knight for now is covering. G takes f4, opening up some ideas with bishop takes h3. Those are covered by king h2. And again, you still have to be careful if knight e7 idea, so a bit of prophylaxis, and maybe the rook is going to go to g8 at some point in the near future. Knight h4, queen, I'm not so sure. This is getting very, very messy here. Knight does drop back to f3, but maybe some queen h5. Are we going to see just some kind of weird repetition? We don't. We see rook g1, but that does drop this pawn, and I think that was a huge blunder. That was a very important pawn, because now that pawn was guarding that knight. Now the knight is on very shaky ground. You can try to unpin yourself with a move like queen b3, but you're going to run into knight a5 ideas potentially. I'm not sure what the problem is with knight a5. Maybe the player saw some knight takes f4 tactical idea. I'm not too sure. I would have probably gone knight a5, but Pragnananda, actually very convincing stuff there against Naroditsky, and forces an early resignation. Queen takes h3. The point being, after he moved the king, the knight on f3 was hanging. And thank you to Payon and Chrisile for the earlier comments. Hello, Maripant. And see, there were a lot of these. I'm not 20 minutes behind. I'm in real time. There were a lot of comments, a lot of emotes. Lichess horsies. It's a cute horsey. All right, we've got black is Naroditsky, and we're gonna leave this. We're gonna make this the last of the Naroditsky games, and then we'll move on to a different player. So if people want to write in the chat which player they would especially like to see, I'll give more consideration to those players who we haven't followed at all. Oh, queen e4. No, queen e4 is not a problem because the bishop is defended twice. f3, if queen takes e3, this is the problem. The rook was hanging, so queen went back to a8. Bishop d6. Oof. And dollar is just winning, because rook f8, the only way to defend this pawn, but bishop takes rook, and it would be lights out very quickly. So let's take a look at another player. Is Andrew Tang Magnus? I don't think Magnus is playing. Can we watch Inventing Invention? Is another request. Okay, shall we go for Inventing Invention for a couple of games? I'm not sure. Do people know who Inventing Invention is? Is that Aryan Erigaisi? Okay, queen b6. Queen b6, check. Inventing Invention, super tough player. Have played him a bunch of times on Lichess. Have not exactly come out smelling of roses. He's a very, very, very tough player, and very fast, very tactical. And here, well, the tactics from Dollar are also top-notch today. I don't know what's going on, though. maybe this is not so top notch. E takes f7, for example, king takes f7 and rook f1 with pin, but white goes it in the other direction, in the other move order, and I think it's just going to force resignation. Actually, it's Erigaisi who is just completely in control here. Wow, what a massacre. Black just did not find a way to develop any of their pieces, and you couldn't move your bishop on f2 because you would be getting checkmated on f7. It's a hard J, so it's Arjun Erigaisi. I hope I said that all right. Bishop takes e4. The point was, if pawn takes, the queen was hanging. Bishop is hanging, be careful. Bishop e6, developing. Maybe some knight b4, just trying to get rid of this strong bishop. Instead, black is on very shaky ground there. The knight went back to e7, trapped the queen. Oof, that ended very, very badly, very quickly. But that's what happens when you go for these fast berserks. Sometimes, you know, you got to play so fast in the opening and you can get into very serious trouble very quickly, even if there is a big rating gap in your favor. And here, Erigaisi is once again berserking, but he's doing it against a grandmaster. We have to be careful here if we're white with knight g4 ideas. He's going for a pawn, but this is very risky stuff. The king is in the center of the board. Bishop coming to a6, has to play c4 to just shut that out. But knight comes to g4, targeting the pawn on f2, and it's a good thing for white that that was no longer an option, no longer in play, this bishop, because otherwise he wouldn't have been able to castle as is. He has been able to castle, and actually he has a good position here. He might go for the exchange of rooks. Instead, he goes for activity on the file and possible threats of nasty checks. So black plays king f8 to control against that. Rook check anyway, and rook e8, not anticipated. Rook a8 pre-moved, and before even giving black the chance to capture that free rook, Erigaisi resigns. I don't think we're going to see a berserk here in this particular game. We've got just a very, very strong opponent in Dropstone, evenly matched players, and we've got a King's Indian on the board with bishop to g5. This is one of the kind of powerful systems that is very, very effective actually at the club level. No time to talk about the variation, but if you're sort of wondering what do I play against the King's Indian, maybe check out this game, just so for reference you know what line we're speaking of, and you might actually find that that it's a nice weapon against the King's Indian. Knight to e5. I wouldn't be surprised if bishop takes e5 happens quite soon in order to vacate the square for knight c4. Instead, he goes for a more aggressive idea. He wants to play f4. That's why black plays g5 to shut it down. And now actually it's a street fight. The bishop is being hit here. Black goes after this exchange. I think that favors black, the exchange of these bishops, because the bishop, this bishop was a very important piece on a very, very critical diagonal. Oof. Queen takes f2. I actually didn't realize that this was a possibility, but this is for a piece. This is for a piece. h3 is an idea, but actually the knight is defending, so that was just a free piece. And there was no follow-up. He just grabbed the pawn, but there was no follow-up. And white now is just liquidating this position, happy to exchange a bunch of pieces. Knight comes to e3. We're going to see knight f5 maybe at the right moment. Bishop takes f6 is the threat. Again, more pieces getting swapped off the board. And white, Erigaisi, is very, very happy here. More pieces off the board still. And we're probably going to see the pawn advancing. Yeah, this is simply game over here. Knight e4 check. And yeah, just game over. Maybe rook e1, rook e6. Anything wins here from this position. All right, so we are almost at the halfway mark. We're just a little bit past the halfway mark, and I'm still feeling the lack of coffee as much as I was at the start, or almost as much as I was at the start of the stream. So I might take like a 1 minute breather in after this game. So if we will play out this game, it's a very exciting game here, because there's a huge attack for Erigaisi, potentially with the knight, the queen, the rook. And there we see a sacrifice. The point was the queen was here, the king was here. If you took, that was a fork. So white plays queen e4, looking for a fork of their own. Knight to b3. Still the rook can't be captured, but what can be captured is this knight. The reason you cannot capture the rook is because, again, that would be a nasty fork to the king. But if you move the queen, I'm actually going to take this piece. So queen c4, making sure that, that the knight cannot be captured. And at the same time, if queen takes, then rook takes. Now, queen d3, these guys are so incredibly creative. And be careful, if you go here, there was actually a beautiful checkmate, a checkmating idea. So invention, doing very, very well here. But white does have two knights in this position. And although I would take the black pieces because it's the rook and a couple of pawns work very, very well in these kind of positions. The knights kind of trip over each other a little bit. Nevertheless, I think objectively it's something very close to equal here. And actually now white has improved their position a lot. And suddenly it's white that's playing very, very ambitiously here. The pawns are falling. This pawn is falling. This pawn is falling. And we see black going for some checks. But it shouldn't be enough. Black should probably go for king to e2 at the right moment, trying to target. We don't see that. Instead, it's all about the clock, and Erigaisi is in trouble here. I think we're going to see a flag sacrificing. Is going to actually be able to convert this on the position, but on the clock he is going to lose. And there we go. There we go. Okay, so let's, while I leave, we will tune in to Toivok. Some people have been asking for Toivok games. So we're going to tune in like this, and I will be back very, very soon. But I'm just going to take a 1 minute break, guys. All right, I'm back, and I found one bite of chocolate and a little bit of water for the final 48 minutes or so of the event. And what are before we move back to that game, the current standings are Rebecca Harris, aka Daniel Naroditsky, he's in first place. Toivog 3, the international master from Finland, in second place. And we've got Nihal Sarin, that although the internet connection or the speed has been a little bit slower than we've typically seen, he is nevertheless in third place. And yeah, it's a very close battle. Grandmaster Haik Martirosyan, he is in fourth place with the same number of points, 76. And Man United Pro, the international master from Vietnam, is in fifth with 75 points. So let's go back and watch Toivog in play. Toivog needs to keep up the pace here. He is in second place, and he's got the white pieces and is looking to do some damage here against Pawn Forik 2006. Rook g8, trying to defend against the threats. Now, you'd want to play Queen g6 and f6, but the problem is your queen would hang, so be very careful with that idea. Bishop f4 is a nice point because bishop e5 check was also potentially in the cards at some point. Now the king is much safer here. The queen, also no queen g3 ideas, nothing like that. Queen takes f6, or queen f6 rather, with check. Black will have to block with bishop g7. And probably if black blocks, we would expect some kind of move like queen h4, threatening bishop takes h6, and trying to break down the black king side, which is looking very, very shaky. That king has almost no squares of cover. And Pawn Forik actually times out there, so we don't know, was it, as someone in the chat is suggesting, a rage quit, or it could simply be sometimes something happens, you get a phone call, your connection drops, many things can happen. So in any case, Toivog with the win. Black was offline, lost connection. Do we see Toivog playing? We're watching, but yeah, we still don't have a new game from Toivog. Is Grandmaster Watneg has there been a late join? Okay, so Toivog with the black pieces against Dropstone. Dropstone, I believe, is a Russian Grandmaster. Maybe it's even... Could it be Paravian? I have no idea. I'm just trying to remember who it is. I may be mixing them up. But yeah, someone in the chat is saying Paravian. Actually won Gibraltar, the Gibraltar Masters on tiebreak against Grandmaster Wang Hao, who recently retired from chess. He won the tiebreak against him. So Paravian, young Russian Grandmaster, very, very strong player. Knight g5 here, targeting h7, but importantly, the queen and the rook are hit here, and we've got rook d1, not even concerning themselves with this rook because actually the queen is trapped. So very nice vision there from David Paravian. Queen d3. But black is actually still fighting here because the king is a little bit shaky in some situations, and importantly, this pawn on d4. Knight will come to c5, the pawn will be defended, and that pawn is going to run up the board. And it's a little bit of a tricky pawn to guard, to actually corral and win. If you're white here, it's hard to actually attack it. And here we see knight f4, but the knight is going to come off the board. That pawn is still there, and yeah, it's really, really restricting white's ability to play actively here. White is trying to activate their pieces nevertheless. Maybe some knight e5 is a nice sequence. c4 forced because this and this were both being hit. So you sacrifice the c4 pawn, but still you cannot play d2 because the rook is hit. So now some d2 ideas, but white actually has solved their problems, have picked up the pawns, but it's come at the expense of a lot of time here. So the question is, can Toivog hang on for long enough that they can flag white, and that is, of course, that is the dream of every experienced bullet player. There's absolutely no shame in flagging your opponent in these positions. That's just part and parcel of the game, and Toivog gets it done in this particular game. Yeah, so very, very nice. And one of Toivog's strengths, again, I've played against Toivog a bunch of times over the years, and one of his great strengths is just his speed and his experience as a bullet player makes him very, very tough, very, very tough in any of these situations. He knows how to balance the position and the clock very, very well. Whereas other players, they're a little bit less... you know, they can kind of get a bit carried away by the position itself and maybe not manage the clock so sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but be so attentive to the clock dynamics, so to speak. That's actually what makes someone like Naroditsky, in my view, so tough. He combines just incredible play, but also incredible bullet experience and just the ability to understand, you know, when to switch from playing the position to playing the clock, how to combine, what to do, like all these kind of bullet tricks and tactics, like how to, you know, make like the nastiest kind of pre-moves in different situations. Like it's hard to explain it, but basically there's like Naroditsky is a part of a group of very experienced grandmaster, like very, very strong grandmasters who are also very experienced bullet players, and they make your life quite miserable because they combine playing the clock and playing the position just really, really well. Knight f2, very nice tactic, by the way. The point is rook takes, I swap the queens, and then I go rook e1 with a back rank mate. If you take first, then I swap the queens and still rook e1. So very, very nice trick there. And yeah, let's watch now Toivog with the black pieces against Martirosyan with the white. So black has to complete their development here. We see bishop to b7, we see a5. We're probably going to see some... Okay, we just see a bunch of pawns coming off the board. Here, black plays h6, kicking the bishop out. And so far, it hasn't been really a very exciting game, this one. Very standard stuff. But white is going for the attack. Seems a little premature, but in bullet, you can take more licenses in these spots. More of a license, queen g6. I'm surprised this pawn did not get taken. Rook f6, nice intermezzo to bring the rook in to just be able to defend against the invading queen. Now knight f6, you do lose this pawn on e6, however. I'm a little bit surprised that was allowed. Now we see knight to g5, knight f7 is a nasty, nasty threat. King g7 though, the point is you still cannot take this, luckily for black, because this queen. And now rook takes g2, you have to watch out for this. I'm not sure what exactly white is going to do, because if you play d5, that knight is no longer defended twice, so that would fall. If you play g3, you're inviting some bishop takes g3 at the right moment, maybe some knight maneuvers. There we go, we see bishop g3. And now, wow, a very unusual approach from Toivog. I'm very surprised by this approach, but it does seem quite convincing. There's a lot of material here. Or not so much material, it's an exchange. It's an exchange for just one pawn. And here I think he missed a nice, missed a nice little opportunity there. I won't go back. I sometimes, I used to, on a previous one, I went back to show like tactical ideas, but one of the feedbacks that I got is that people would rather sort of not show the tactical ideas if it means that we can avoid like this whole going back because it breaks the flow of the games. If you disagree with that and you'd like to see tactical ideas, by all means share your point of view. But to me it makes sense, and that's why I don't go back. But if people were like, please do go back, then I could go back while a game is unfolding to show tactical ideas with a little more time, because otherwise everything happens really quickly. So I don't know, you guys tell me. Okay, here is a very typical situation, queenside against kingside. We've got white with a massive queenside attack. Rook takes a1, necessary by the way, because otherwise the queen was here, the rook was hanging as well, so rook takes a1 intermezzo. Big queenside attack for white, big kingside attack for black. So actually the queens coming off the board is very helpful for white in general in these spots. However, on the other hand, black is also safe because yes, all of the pawns got gobbled up on the queen side, but white lost their pawns in the process. So now it's just very, very balanced position here, where actually, if anything, black has a little bit more space. And black is going on the offensive, sacrificing a pawn. just to clear that g4 square for the knight, so that maybe we can combine, bring in a rook to e2 and target f2. I'm not so sure how good this is, objectively speaking. It looks to me like black actually, white rather, has no problems defending everything and can just slot the rook back to b2. I'm surprised by the direction that they took here, because it felt to me like at any moment rook to c2 and knight to g4 could combine, but different direction, knight d2, costing white this piece. Now knight takes e3, knight takes g4. Oof. I don't know what happened there. White lost control of the position, and black, Naroditsky, was trying all the time, different ideas, playing ambitiously, and somehow it worked out. But I feel like it shouldn't have. Here white very much was calm, in control of the position, and then suddenly they went for active play, but their king side started to fall apart. One more game from Toivak here. Let's check this game out. Bishop goes to c6, bishop goes to b5. We've got this knight here, the bishop here on d4. It's on the one hand, everything defends itself. The bishop does not defend the knight, but this defends and this defends and this defends. But on the other hand, there was some shakiness there, because at any given moment there could be captures from black, but none of that has actually materialized. Instead, white is really firmly in control. This bishop is a very strong piece, so black challenges it, and well, actually white has to be a little bit careful in this position. Very nice sequence actually from black, and I think white didn't expect it. White didn't expect that black would take this knight instead of this bishop. So now we've got this position where all of a sudden black is extremely comfortable. They're up a pawn here. On the other hand, opposite color bishops should objectively be a draw here. Rook f2, maybe in the air, rook e4. White is happy to exchange these and argues, well, this is a drawn position. On the other hand, I'm not sure that you should have done that, because now black actually has this very annoying two pass pawn situation, and I'm not even sure bishop c6 is necessary. Now the king has gone off, so the king can no longer defend against any of the pawns. Black will sacrifice, and now the two pawns will overwhelm the bishop. I'm a little bit surprised by the decisions made there from white to exchange the rooks, maybe didn't realize the practical problems, and then to march the king forward was just basically kind of suicidal. But anyway, we're on to the next game, and Toivak with the white pieces is playing against one of the top German grandmasters, this new breed of very strong grandmasters, Matthias Blubam. And here g5 is just a crunching move here, because the point is the queen and the rook are defending the knight, which is attacked twice, and g5 just forces the queen away from the defense, and that's that. I mean, white threw in a spite knight a4 and then just resigned, because black has queen b4, which keeps the defense of this bishop and at the same time targets the knight. So very nice spot here, this g5 move. Okay, we've watched Toivak for a bunch of games. Who should we watch next? It looks like Naroditsky is running away with it. We're looking at a very big gap of 16 points having opened up. He's not on fire. That's about the only thing that might save them. But, well, Dania. People want to watch Dania. Some people want to watch Prag. The Prophet. Let's watch the Prophet in action. Maybe, actually, let's watch the Prophet for... the Prophet, by the way, for those who don't know, is the nickname that he got some months ago, back when there was an event on a website, and this event led to some people referring to him as the Prophet because of his ability to peer into the future and guess what people might play. Okay, so yeah, it was PogChamps for those who are not aware of what event. A very cool event. I must admit, I'm gonna I never know actually. I'm sure it's fine, right? I never know what the policy is on discussing events from different sites, but I think in general, my feeling is Lichess are very relaxed about that. Okay, so what is going on in this game? We've got Danya. His king is being chased around a little bit, but I like this pawn here. White wants king c3 or something. King c3. Get this king up the board so we can defend this. Maybe move the knight. Maybe bring the knight to b4 so that we can start pushing this pawn. Everything that Danya is doing here is about this pawn, but black is playing very, very tough chess here. Knight a6, nice idea. b7 is the point, and everything has actually been controlled. The problem is if you sacrifice and then you queen, it's not going to be enough because these pawns are too strong. Rook d2, the point is if h2, rook takes, and then this pawn queens. And it's really a game of cat and mouse here in terms of, you know, who is able to use their extra pawns in, you know, on queen side versus king side. In the end, okay, I'm still haven't finished that sentence, but 25 more moves were played while I was trying to get out one sentence. So impressive stuff there from Danya, who emerges victorious, was able to get that one pawn to make the difference. Very, very nice maneuvering throughout the game, it has to be said. Here, queen d3, bishop h4. We need to see, actually, if we want the battle to be close, we actually need to see Danya start to lose games. I don't think that's going to happen. He is on a tear, and he's got a tough opponent here in Martirosyan. Well, very safe position here for white. Could even go for something very simple if he wanted to just sort of try and cruise to victory in this tournament. Reduce the amount of risk in the positions. Maybe he's already doing that. He's playing more solidly than in the early games, I felt. But then again, what am I saying? Rook e4, actually allowing this pawn to be captured, and it's all about bringing as much firepower to the king side as possible. h4, h5, trying to break this structure down. I'm not too sure how effective this attack actually is, but now maybe bishop takes f5 at some point in the air, or rook takes f5. He goes for rook takes f5, and that's it. That's going to be game over, because whatever you do with your king, that rook is going to be hanging. I spoke too soon. Although you do lose everything on the king side, you win this pawn, and with it this pawn. So actually maybe Danya got a little bit carried away there, and in fact white is the one losing. It's almost, you can almost say it's unlucky, this particular situation. I mean, it's very hard. It's hard to believe that either player saw so much into the position, and it just so happened that in the end there was knight takes c3 and knight takes a2. Now I don't want to take any credit away from Martirosyan. I'm assuming he didn't see it, but in some cases, like, he's such a strong player, 3000 plus, he may have actually seen the whole sequence. So I'm just saying, those situations, if they ever happened in any of my games or in most players' games, there is an element of luck sometimes, at least I find. I don't know if you guys can relate to that. Sometimes in bullet, you just don't have so much time. In blitz as well, you don't have so much time to work things out. And sometimes your opponent hits you with a tactical sequence, you miss the tactical sequence, and in the end, through a stroke of fortune, you have some actually move that changes the evaluation right at the end. Okay, a6, kicking the queen out. No doubt black is looking to capture this pawn on e4 at the right moment, but the problem is that pawn on c7 was being hit, so black actually feels this is too important. And bishop g5 is a nice move, looking for those weakened dark squares. Knight f6 check was an option, and black had to stop that. That's why rook e6. Now I kick out the bishop. Now I fight against your most active piece, get rid of it, and now rook e8. Again, this concept of fighting against the most active pieces of your opponent. Very often, if you're not quite sure what is the best move in a position, look for their best piece and just try and target it. Very often that will be the best move. Here, queen takes c4 is not possible because queen takes f7 would be devastating, so the queens are coming off the board. Apparently it would not be devastating. Apparently it's just maybe some kind of perpetual and no big deal, because if you play queen takes g6, then queen takes d5. Nevertheless, I'm not sure why you would do this as black, to be honest. It seems a little bit scary. Your king is permanently very exposed to a lot of different checks. On the other hand, white doesn't have enough pieces, and maybe the worst that black can deal with or can face is a perpetual. Here we're seeing black actually is trying to play for a win. Rebecca Harris always plays for a win, it seems, and queen e4, and he's going to get it. He's going to get it. That was a very quick spot. Bishop d4, queen e4, check to the king, and striking at the bishop, game over. So I think, I mean, we're pretty much there. Probably, I don't know what the exact standings are, but man, Rebecca is on fire. Yeah, I saw that moment, Andrew. Flaneur says, not on fire yet, but, well, certainly on fire in the tournament standings, perhaps not on Lichess fire. Here, though, Chess Hobbits is putting up a tough fight. We've got 2 rooks and a bishop, a lot of pawns for white. It's a very strange material imbalance. Objectively, my feeling is it's probably... Oof, now I think black is just in trouble. This queen f5. I think earlier it was objectively fine for black. 2 rooks and a bishop are very powerful. But here now I think it's starting to get a little bit too messy. The pawns are very, very advanced. The white queen is so effective. There's pawns everywhere. Black's pieces cannot coordinate. And certainly in a bullet game, I think it's just going to be game over. And now we just see that even more pawns. I mean, now it's just too many pawns. Queen e5 check. Queen d5, and white just has to combine advancing the kingside pawn with advancing these queen's pawns. But be careful, do not get checkmated. Do not get checkmated. This is actually a bit of a problem here for Naroditsky, but king g6 allows the white king to escape. I'm very surprised. You just have to be very careful if you're Naroditsky that you don't get checkmated here. And in the end, a beautiful mating pattern here for white. It was a very funny game there in the end. And now Naroditsky with the black pieces against Thomas Bjertsen, Munir, aka Munir Manje. Anyone who has played a bunch on Lichess will probably be familiar with Munir Manje. Anyone who's played a bunch of bullet, especially, he plays quite a bit of bullet and is a very tough young Dutch strong international master, no doubt. Soon will be a grandmaster. Piece of trivia actually for the chat is that I've played for a team, in a British team, where the captain is Fiona, aka Fionketta, who's a streamer on Twitch, and we both know Thomas Bjertsen, Munir Manje, and so Fiona asked him would he play for the team. He agreed, and he played for the team, and he was on the board next to me. And it was the first time that he had played, and basically I had a game. I played really terribly, and then he also did not have a very good game. And then afterwards, when we spoke about the game, he said to me, "Yeah, I played really a very, very bad game." And then he added, "I played almost as badly as you did." So that was Thomas's debut on our team, but it was all in jest. He's a very nice guy, and yeah, we never played on the same team again, actually, but that had nothing to do with the comment and everything to do with the virus, as this actually happened. This took place a month or two before the virus hit with full force. would say Vlad chess, you know, I would tend to I mean, of course, Max is just a monster. Vlad chess is speaking about Max Varmerdam's strength, and he is a young Dutch player who recently became a Grandmaster. Max Varmerdam has had an incredible year. He started, I think, as 2460 or 2470 in rating, something like that, or maybe 2480. And then he just scored back-to-back Grandmaster norms and is now like 2560 or something like this. Very similar to what Hans Niemann did. And I think they both actually were even playing in the same tournament, or one or two of them in Italy. And they just got their high 2400s, but extremely strong players. And so they ended up like almost high 2500s by the end of their tournaments. But I think that Munir, I mean, I know how he used to play and how he plays today, and he was always very, very strong since I've known him. But to me, he's made a qualitative, like a huge leap in his chess strength, his overall chess strength. And my feeling is it's not fully reflected because of the lack of games due to COVID. I think that once tournament schedule is regularly resumed, I think he's going to crush it. Okay, let's comment for the next 21 minutes. But Max is an absolute monster. I mean, Max Varmerdam has actually been the second, and very successfully, of Jordan van Vereest, who won Tata Steel. And then after Jordan, Max actually has been, I think, the second of Anish Giri. So, I mean, it says a lot when the top two players in the Netherlands, and, you know, one of them, Anish, like one of the very best in the world, when they are asking you to be their second, I think it speaks volumes to the quality of your play. So yeah, a player to watch out for. Max Varmerdam probably will jump onto the 2600 plus scene not too long from now. For now, Chigalko is putting the squeeze on here against Naroditsky. We've got rook takes d5, and a pawn fell. This pawn structure is bad. King h8, sliding the rook over to g8 perhaps, but white is very happy here. Knight on g5, queen on f4, rook on d6. Total domination of the dark squares here. Everything is just beautiful here. Knight h5. The knight was looking to come to e5 to f6, and it still will. Black was happy enough to give up an exchange, but at least go hopping, pick up a pawn here, pick up a pawn there. But knight takes e6 at the right moment is going to be really problematic here. Maybe just some rook takes b7 move just to defend the knight. And now we see this whole sequence. We see maybe some rook a6, rook d7, taking a different direction, looking for checks, threatening mate. We're probably going to move the rook, still threatening mate from both directions. I think we're going to see a resignation. So very nice game from Chigalko. What is the situation? Chigalko is on 112 points and Dania is on 124, 19 minutes to go. Let's watch Chigalko for a bit. We need to see Chigalko winning. He is on fire here. Maybe there's a chance he might actually do it, but he's got a very big task ahead of him right now in this game against Vladimirovich. We're looking to see what will happen here over the next few moves. Knight c3 and d5. It's a little bit of an unusual way to play this. This bishop on b7 now feels a bit passive. On the other hand, you have this big diagonal here. Black is playing g5, happy to take a lot of risk, and knight b5, knight d6. If you take me, I'm going to have an interesting pawn here, double-edged pawn, in the sense that on the one hand, it's weak, it's doubled. On the other, it's really advanced, and it can be potentially very, very strong. Combining here with rook c7, black is going to probably have to play e5 at some point in order to disconnect the bishop from the defense of the pawn. But it's very difficult to play e5 when you've got that pawn, that knight, that rook, everything guarding that square. Queen g6, looking for a queen exchange. That would take the pressure off, because at the end of the day, the black king is a lot less safe than the white king here. We can definitely imagine White's pieces invading more easily. For example, let's say you move the bishop, then maybe that rook invades, targets you along this G file. But instead, actually, White surprises me and does actually accept the queen exchange. White is definitely pressing, and because of the tournament situation, needs to press. So yeah, definitely thinking that he has good chances in this endgame. I'm not so convinced, and certainly the way the game has played out, it feels like black is actually suddenly hanging on here. The pawn is going to drop, as will this one, and capturing with the rook is no way to attempt to play for a win. So I don't think that there's any intention to play for a win. He's looking to get that draw, but the draw might signal more of a sort of an idea or a strategy of hedging your bets here. If you're Chigalko, you're not going all out for overtaking Naroditsky, perhaps deeming it just a little bit too difficult of a prospect or too unlikely of a prospect. But at the same time, you also want to, you know, be responsible. You want to go for it, but you want to be sort of responsible in all of your games, that you try and carve out a point here, a point there, rather than you know, go all in and lose games needlessly, and then find yourself slipping behind second place and maybe into you know, third or fourth place and either less money or out of the money. So it could be an element of that, you know, saying if I can overtake you, great. If not, second place is there's no shame in second place when the winner is you know, a player like Naroditsky. Okay, knight b3. We're looking at knight takes a5 as the key thread in this position. King c8, escaping, but I'm not so convinced. Queen a6, king here, or knight takes a5 immediately, because if pawn takes, queen a6 check, king here, and then queen a8 check, that's the sequence, and it's just going to be a disaster. I mean, the black king is in serious trouble. White is for sure going to press for win, and I think he's going to get it here. Oh, rook b7. Oh, this is so nasty. Rook b7, probably the intention was rook b8 or something like that, and it actually gave Chigalko the opportunity to take the queen for free, and he didn't take it. He pre-moved king e7, and that marked the difference between immediate resignation from Chigalko versus immediate resignation from White had he done it. And now both players, 16 minutes to go, they're both berserking each other here. This is exactly what Chigalko wants. And he does have a great position. He can pick up another pawn here on d5. He can take, blast the center, open on d5, maybe take again, because this bishop is hanging, so you're not in time to capture. And, well, what more can you want? Your opponent is happy to berserk. You've got very little time, and now you just have this crushing position. Queen takes e3, bishop takes. You know, you can pick up the piece, but in the end, there's going to be some kind of nasty fork there with f2. So, what is the situation? Where are we at? We're 117 points against 128. So Chigalko is still alive, but you have to make sure the only way that you can really be alive is if Dania does poorly in these games, because it is ultimately in Dania's hands here, and he is on fire. If he can win this game, it's going to count for double points. So let's take a look at this. And f4, he's looking to be in great shape here because knight c6 is coming in, striking at this bishop. And yeah, there might be some tactics. There might be some e5. He plays it much more calmly, much more conservatively here. Swaps off, just gets the position into a simplified endgame where he's going to, I think, convert this quite effortlessly. No real risk. And maybe we're seeing Dania actually showing once again his tournament experience where he's saying, you know, I've got 15 minutes on the clock. I know how strong Chigalko is. I'm just going to play it a little bit more safe. Perhaps that's the case, or perhaps, you know, it's just the way the game went. I don't know if it's a conscious strategy. In any case, that's a huge win for Dania. That actually makes a 15-point difference. Although Chigalko does have those 3 points. Let's actually watch one more game from Dania. Let's see if he is able to convert this. Screw says Max actually played hands in the game that sealed the Grandmaster title. Very interesting. That sealed it for who? That sealed it for Max, right? Yeah. Yeah, actually now I seem to have some vague memory of this. Okay, we're hitting this bishop. And position once again. I mean, I think that was a really nice trick actually from White, using tactics here to get this much more potent position. And actually, I thought everything was okay, and suddenly everything is not okay. White's pieces are so active, and there has to be some tactic. Like bishop f7, for example, is a beautiful tactical idea. Hits the rook, hits the queen. If you take my rook, I actually checkmate you here with bishop takes f6. So queen e7 has had to be played, and I'm surprised that the particulars. Oh, very nice tactic. Rook d7. If you had taken, there was another mate, and Blue Bam incredibly sharp, but somehow, incredibly, he's been tricked. He's been tricked by Naroditsky. Somehow, in the end, Naroditsky is up a piece. I don't know how he does it, but here we are, and Naroditsky just needs to make sure that these pawns, and it's checkmate in the end. He actually, oof, that one's gonna sting. That one is gonna sting for Matthias Bluebaum, who was just absolutely crushing it. But again, incredible resilience. Very tough to actually process what exactly is going on in what the players are playing. Cold River says, Alex, do you think anyone beats Magnus in a world championship besides time and aging? Well, I mean, you know what Kasparov said not so long ago is he said that you know, the one opponent he cannot beat is the passing of time or something like that. I mean, he said it a bit more succinctly, but yeah, like, I think, does anyone beat Magnus? I mean, in a single match, absolutely. Like, anything can happen. I mean, we saw Karyakin and Caruana both came very close. So it can happen. These matches are not as long as they used to be in chess. And so therefore the margin for error, you know, is not so much. And we've seen also, like, Caruana, I mean, his play is insanely good. Like, in my view, I mean, Caruana's, the quality of his play, and it's okay, it's not a controversial thing to say, right? Anyone who's been following chess for some time, I mean, will have noted Caruana's incredible consistency of play and just the quality of his moves. He's like an engine. So Rook a3, by the way, black resigned here. The point is, yeah, you can win this pawn, but once this one falls, there's nothing to be done. You're down in exchange and down a bunch of pawns. So Naroditsky wins again, and we've got a 20-point gap. We've got 10 minutes on the clock. It's not looking good. I did say that I would watch an Eric Rosen game. Now I'm actually... Yes, Eric Rosen is just I accidentally searched for. All right, let's watch a game of Eric Rosen. So it looks like Naroditsky has taken this one down. We will check back in a second, but just to wrap up, like, this this question is, you know, or this answer. He, like, in a single match, someone like Caruana can absolutely beat him, and he's not the only one. Nepo also has a lifetime plus score against Magnus, and Nepo, he is a better, maybe, like, blitz and rapid player than, or more dangerous blitz and rapid player. This is lights out here, knight takes d5, picking this up. He's a more dangerous blitz and rapid player than maybe both Caruana and Karyakin. So I think that's going to make Magnus more uncomfortable with a view to some, like, tie breaks, some rapid tie breaks. So he might take a little bit more risk in the classical portion of the match. And Magnus could certainly lose it. So do I think Magnus could be beaten in a single match and dethroned? Yes, I think so. Do I think he's the favorite in every match? Yes, also. Do I think Magnus will sort of, let's say, enjoy the next 10 years or so as the highest ranked player in the world and, you know, unanimously considered the strongest player in the world? This, I'm not so sure. And I say 10 years because roughly at that point, his career at the absolute peak of his powers will be kind of, he'll be on the tail end of his career, so to speak. So if he could ride out another 10 years as the world's undisputed number one, I think we could say that Magnus would only have been beaten by the passage of time, more or less, or something close to it. But will he get that honor? I'm not so sure. We've seen so many new tremendous talents, but of course the name that pops up time and time again in these discussions is Alireza Firouzja. And Magnus, from a very early point, has sort of paid a lot of respect to Firouzja's play. I think he recognizes that Firouzja has tremendous potential to be the next sort of world number one player. And if Firouzja lives out his potential, he might actually live that potential out before Magnus retires. So I think to me, it's, if someone is going to overtake Magnus as of today, I would say that would be Firouzja. That would be the question on my mind. I don't think Magnus is going to be overtaken by any of the other names, the current crop out there today. Even the youngsters, I haven't seen any player who is quite in this category of Firouzja. But what are your opinions, guys? Eric, by the way, crushing it in this game. He's going to pick up everything. He's going to go queen d4 check, and we're going to take this pawn on h4. Maybe even stronger, c2. Just, you cannot take this pawn because of this nastiness. Yeah, Wei Yi fell off the radar, says Floyd Akash. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Who do people want to watch, by the way? I mean, it's 6 minutes to go. We've got 24-point gap. So at this point, we can say Naroditsky is the winner. Do you guys want to see Naroditsky's victory lap, watching his last few games in the tournament? Or would you like instead to watch this battle for second place? Battle for second place or Naroditsky victory lap? Prag is coming on strong for a medal. Can he do it? He's gone. Okay, shall we watch Prag and let's see if he can actually extend this streak? Nice suggestion from the chat. So let's see, can he do it? He's in pretty good shape here. In terms of like active play, but he is down he's not in good shape at all now because he's down a lot of material. Queen g6, he's going to be looking for some cheapo, but I think he's absolutely not in good shape. Nihal destroys him in that encounter with the black pieces, and unfortunately that means that Prag has lost his streak. And well, he gets a kind of a gift here from Erigaisi, who berserks him. And so when I say a gift, it means the odds that Prag is able to actually win this game are very, very high, and he needs a win desperately, and he needs one relatively quick. Knight b6, defending the pawn. c5, kicking the knight back to be able to grab this pawn. Erigaisi in control of the position, but black is also very comfortable here. Knight c6, striking at this pawn and the rook, so the rook drops back. f5, nice pawn break. Knight to c4, striking at the center, but black blasts open the center, and I actually really love the black position. I think it's all falling apart for white now. Bishop takes e4, coming in with check, important check, but the rook on a4 hangs after the sequence, so both pawns fell, but that rook was unaccounted for. Queen e1, looking to create a mate threat, now swapping off the queens. I'm a bit surprised by that decision. Just from a tournament standings perspective, 4 minutes, rook e2 check is going to pick up the knight, and that's going to be game over. So I was a little bit surprised that Prag would not want to even try and win faster than that, but he does get the job done. And let's stick around with Prag to see, can he get a win on the next game? But I'm not sure after this. I'm not sure that Prag can actually make it. Maybe someone in the chat can let me know. But yeah, I think that loss may have cost him a little bit too much. Queen e1 may seem like a strange move, but it's supporting that e4 push, e5, and this whole e5 h4 thing is known as the King's Indian attack. White is setting themselves up to eventually play this h6 and maneuver this knight over. It's an entire scheme setup that's quite interesting to play actually, and very effective at the club level, because you get to play the same setup a bunch of times, and then you can aspire to be one of those players that knows the system very, very well, and people are kind of disgusted to play against such an opponent because they just know the system very well. If you're anything like me, if you play against someone who just has a system that they know inside out, it can be really, really tough to face them, because they just have that experience. So this is a way to play like this, very systematically. It's actually one of the things that makes the London system an attractive opening choice for many players as well, that you can play kind of the same system multiple times. So Prag, he's in 5th place. He's in trouble. Let's take a look actually at the tournament standings with 2 minutes to go. We've got 145. Rebecca has clinched it, but we've got Chigalko against Munir. Are they playing right now? Chigalko is playing against Arms 777. Let's take a look. Chigalko needs to not lose here. He needs to try and get some points out of this game to keep that lead. Although in theory they could both lose, both Chigalko and Munir. Chigalko is certainly in trouble. Let's look at it from the black side. About to resign. He has resigned. Queen and knight against only 2 rooks. That is completely hopeless. So now where are we at? Chigalko is still on 123. What is Munir up to? Does he have any chances? Let's see. I'm rooting for Munir. Nothing against Chigalko, but Munir is a teammate. So many pawns. F6, E7, and that's actually a beautiful conversion here. A million queens on the board, and Queen E3. Munir picking up a big win here. Oh, and what a nasty opponent to face off against. Interesting. This is it. It's 1 minute to go. And Munir, if he can win this game, I believe he will come in 2nd place. He is currently in 2nd place, but will he be able to get there in time with this game? It's 57 seconds, so this is 23 each. Actually, the game will be finished in time because they both berserked. So that was kind of a nice thing. And now what do we have in this position? We've got complete madness. But black is actually in great shape. Black is up a piece here. Queen F5. Queen A5 swapping off, offering to swap off the pieces. Now, Munir is incredibly fast player, but Naroditsky is too. So let's see. Rook takes D3. Rook over. Maybe Rook E3. Everything is safe, but this rook is pinned. Rook takes D2 though. You do win both rooks. Now this other rook to D2. I don't think that there's any checks. And it's a draw. It's a draw. Black offers a draw with King A7, which gets accepted. Probably what? I think he wanted the draw. He wanted the draw because he felt that the draw was going to get him, but it does not get him. It actually leaves him with the same amount of points. I think he might have thought that the draw was going to guarantee him, but actually he needed the win in order to secure 2nd place, and he actually gets leapfrogged on the standings from So congratulations to Rebecca Harris, aka Daniel Naroditsky, who wins like the 17th for the 17th time or something like this. Incredible consistency. It has to be said, this was a less strong field than the ones that are, when we have the likes of Andrew Tang and of course Magnus Carlsen, Alireza Firouzja. These are regular participants in these titled arenas, and all of these players were missing in this particular event. So less strong than other events, but nevertheless incredibly strong as always. Some very, very young, strong Indian talent definitely featuring here. We've got Pragnananda in 5th, Eric Icy in 6th, and Nihal Sarin in 7th. So incredible, the new generation of Indian players on an extremely high level there. But they're all out of the podium. In the end, narrowly out of it was a player who was the leader for a good portion of the tournament. That is the Finnish international master, Toivog 3. And Meneer Manja, aka Thomas Beertsen from the Netherlands, he came in third place, but will he regret his decision in that final game? Well, had he not gone for the draw, it wouldn't have changed the standings in any way as things played out. But of course, in the heat of battle, I don't know if you can actually even make these calculations, or it's very easy to not know, right, what's going on with the other games, because you got to focus only on your own. And Chigalko did manage to pull off a win in his final game against Bluebaum in order to actually be able to arrive into second place. So congratulations to Sergei Chigalko, who is, I believe, was also streaming the event, perhaps in Russian. Yeah, but let's take a look at that final game, actually, where he offered a draw. To me, I feel it was just completely winning for black. And he had this position. And after queen takes f7 with 8.4 seconds against 9.9, the move that I was expecting was rook to d2 here. With the point being, with such little time, maybe what Meneer Manja thought was after queen check, king here, it's queen check, I'm just going to go back, it's going to be a draw, so let me just offer the draw straight away. It could be something like this, or you might think, well, if I go b6, I lose this, and then this will also be a draw, because I can check my opponent forever on the back rank. But I cannot do more than that because white is having very strong threats as well. But in this position, if nothing else, you have king a8, and after the queen moves back, you've got knight b8. And this would be completely winning because now white maybe has to passively defend. But you would get some kind of position like this. Now, to be fair, Thomas Beertsen may have thought, well, I don't know whether this extra point will matter. I don't fancy my chances with 8 seconds against 9 against, the tournament winner and perhaps the fastest player in the event, Naroditsky. If I play on, maybe I'm just not going to be able to get the full points more often than not, and maybe a loss will hurt me and knock me out of the podium. So hard to know what was the right decision in the heat of the moment. Very easy in hindsight here. So, okay, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed the tournament. And again, very much apologize for the sort of I don't know if maybe you guys can't feel it as much as I can, but I'm on, like, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, I'm on very little sleep and absent of coffee. So it's been a little bit of a struggle to get the motor running, but I hope nevertheless you guys enjoyed this titled arena commentary for Lichess. And yeah, thanks guys for tuning in, and it's good to see a bunch of familiar faces who I know well from Fiona, aka Fionkette's streams. And yeah, I don't know if I will be back to stream very regularly, but I certainly hope that I will have the time to do some streaming for, here and there. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Bullet commentary is, watching Bullet and sort of following along with commentary for Bullet is kind of manic and kind of crazy, and it's almost impossible to keep up because these guys are so strong. It's hard to follow all these crazy lines, but I hope nevertheless it was enjoyable and fun. And congratulations once again to Mr. Naroditsky, who wins the event, and Chigalko and Meneer Manja, who round out the podium. So yeah, the next titled arena will be, I guess, in a couple of weeks or so. So hopefully that'll be another fun and exciting event. Typically, I would imagine it will be a blitz event. It might be a chess 960, but maybe someone in the chat can confirm. But typically what I see is a blitz, bullet, blitz, bullet. So we'll see. We'll see what 2 weeks from now brings. So guys, thanks very much, and